All right. Okay. So there's a procedure to find your confidence interval. So my confidence interval is p hat minus e, comma p hat plus e. In order to do that, I need p hat and I need e, right? So p hat, you'll be given p hat. You have to be given p hat. And then for e, my critical value, I find that from my confidence interval. Right? You look it up on the table. Or the table is at the top of your page. P hat, Q hat. P hat, you're given P hat. Q hat is just like P's and Q's. Remember you guys remember a little p and little q from the binomials before? They add up to 1. Little p and little q add up to 1. P hat and Q hat also add up to 1. So if you have P hat, you can find Q hat by subtracting P hat from 1. That's your Q hat. And then N, again, you're going to be given. So you have all those pieces. You just need to find the critical value, which again, you look up on that table at the top of your page. So we're going to do this one together, which means that you will literally be writing stuff in on your sheet. So let's see. Nathan, read for me the first paragraph.
In the chapter problem, we noted that a Pew Research Center poll of 1,007 randomly selected adults showed that 85% of respondents know what Twitter is. The sample results are n equals 1,007 and p hat equals 0.85.
Perfect. All right, so my n is 1,007. My p hat is 0.85. Everybody find q hat right now. Find it.
0.15.
Write it down. Victoria, I need you. Everyone write down q hat. Write it down. Where's your q hat? Write it down. Write it down. Where's the q hat?
That's going to keep getting like that. As the season's approaching this work.
What's your q hat?
No, I feel that.
All I want to do is be in bed all the time.
Literally.
I literally hate my life.
I had to drag myself out of bed yesterday. I'm like, I have stuff that I have shopped that I've never done before. I can't do it this weekend. Okay, but I should go on vacation this weekend.
Hey, hype yourself up.
No,
but
but
there. There you go.
like, I'm going with my circles.
Yes. Let you talk.
Exactly, dude. I'm like so well. My friends were it was really fun. I got really high. She became my therapist for the night.
So I'm always that person.
I just told her my life story. Then she didn't want to drive home, so I just let her come to my house.
There you go.
I know, yeah.
Better safe than sorry.
It was funny because my friend went home like for she's like, yeah, I have 1 in the morning. Like I don't want to sleep. I was like,
Okay, so my q hat.
it's fine.
Quiet down, everybody. Q hat is 1 minus p hat. So it's 1 minus 0.85, which means that my q hat is 0.15. Okay, everybody find my critical value. Critical value equals what? Where do you find it? Look it up on the table, at the top of the page. Find the critical value. CV equals what? Write it down. CV equals what? CV equals what? CV equals, yep. CV equals, top of the page, top of the page.
Oh.
Look here, CV equals, what's CV equals? CV equals?
Oh, that makes sense. Thank you.
How do you do that?
Oh, this is not, yeah.
Where did it go? Oh, it's a 95 right here.
Yeah.
Okay, I was like, how did you get it?
Okay, so 91% confidence level. My critical value is what? 1.05. 1.96. It's right there. So my CV is equal to 1.96. Okay, good. So we have those two pieces. Now I need to find our error. My error is equal to my critical value times the square root of P hat Q hat over N. Let me rewrite those better. P hat Q hat over N. So that's going to equal 1.96 times square root of 0.85 times 0.15. Oops. 15 divided by 1007. Here's the deal. Find the inside first. So whenever you're solving, you're evaluating an equation, start from the inside and then work your way outwards. So find 0.85 times 0.15 divided by 107 first, and then square root it. So I've written this down. I'm going to go ahead and go through this on the calculator. Okay. Everybody with me? Yes? No? Everyone look up.
Yes.
The inside first. 0.85 times 0.15. Do it on your calculator if you have it. Enter. Divided by 1007. There should be no talking besides me right now. Then I need to square root this.
And it'll be
Can you folks be quiet? Sorry. So now I need to square root this. The easiest way to square root something is to raise it to the 1/2 power. Square rooting something and raising it to the 1/2 power are the same thing. So to raise something to the 1/2 power, I'm just going to use this little arrow up above the division key right here. Raise it to the 0.5 power. That will square root it. You could also do it this way if you wanted to. You could do it, some people do this instead. They do second square root, which is this key here, you get the square root. And they do second answer, which is this button down here, second and the button down here. And that will also give you the same thing. Either way, you get 0.01125 whatever. And then you multiply that by 1.96. So then I get 0.0220. I think it's 0.0221, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll end up with 0.0221. Good so far? That's my margin of error. You are not done yet. That's your margin of error. I still find the confidence interval. Okay, so my confidence interval is going to be my p hat minus e, comma my p hat plus e. So that's going to be, let's see, what's my p hat? 0.85 minus 0.0221, comma 0.85 plus 0.0221. And that ends up being 0.8279, yep, comma 0.8721. And then we need 3 sig figs. So that'll end up being 0.828, comma 0.872. Good? All right, and I don't, so whenever I'm explaining or someone else is talking, I really need everyone else to be quiet, because you can always talk to your neighbors, you know, a few minutes later, but the problem is that if you're talking, you're distracting people around you, and they paid money to, you know, to be in this class, and they can't hear or understand because you're talking, and that's not fair to them. So that's why I'm really going to be a jerk about that, because I've had student feedback saying, you know, I couldn't understand because people remember talking, so I'm just going to be kind of hard about that, sorry. All right, so here's my confidence interval. So you folks should all be writing this in under the example. If you're not writing it under the example, then you will not get 2 points for your extra credit for this on the next exam, right? So this is on, we're flipped over to page B now, right? The next page, right? Now we're not at the bottom of this page, we're on the next page, top of the next page. Confidence interval. And then C, based on the results, can we say that they are Can we conclude that more than, yeah, can we conclude that more than, where am I? There we go. I would say yes. Yes. The range, the confidence interval, point, what was it again? Point
0.828, comma 0.8272.
872
Yeah.
is entirely above 75%. Does that make sense? So since my range, my confidence interval range is entirely above 75%, then I would say definitely it's above 75%. It's more like, I can even say I think it's above 82%. Does that make sense, what we're saying? My range should be between 82.8% and 87.2%. So definitely more than 75%. Okay, how about D? D is, all right, so for you folks to write down, I'm happy, here's the answer to D. Wait. I'm happy if you just wrote down this part here. This part, and that part.
So you want both or just one?
Yeah, both of those things. You can't just say 85% of U.S. adults know what Twitter is. The percentage should differ by no more than 2.2%.
So like, should we just like merge those two sentences?
Yeah, merge those two sentences into one sentence, or two statements. But those are the two. You should have those two statements, and that's enough. You shouldn't have to write all that because that's a lot. But that should be the kind of the bare minimum. That if you were a news reporter, you'd probably write the whole thing. Is everyone on board with what I'm saying? But for you folks to fill it on your sheet, I'm happy if you just write in those two circled statements. That's totally fine. All right. Now, you folks have got lab number 1 to do together. Go ahead and start. Take 15 seconds with your neighbors. First of all, give me N, P hat, Q hat, and your critical value. Find those 4 things. I'll give you folks 30 seconds to find those. We're going to walk around and make sure that you're doing that.
There was something I asked people. I just
And your critical value.
I thought they were all just like, you're like, I'm really thinking about this right now. I thought they were all living in like badly constructed slums.
And your critical value.
Yeah. It's really awkward pause. Yes, it is.
And it's 1888.
Yeah. I don't know why I paused.
Yeah, 25. I don't know why I got it too.
Wait, 45% yes, and then 95% no. Remember, P and Q go together. Mind your P's and Q's. P is the percent that say yes. Q is the percent that say no. Let's solve the problem. Yeah, okay. Okay, so survey of, that's my N. 1898. 75% of adults, that's your p hat. And then q hat is 1 minus 0.45, 0.55. And then my critical value comes from this guy right here. Right here. Look at that in the table. I get 1.996. Okay, everybody find your E and then find your confidence interval. First find your E and then find your confidence interval.
So I found the expected value by taking the confidence interval and then finding on the table the critical value, which was 1.96. And then I took the square root of p hat times q hat over n, and then I got the expected value. I subtracted the expected value from p hat.
Or the
margin of error. I don't know why I said. I took the margin of error and I subtracted it from p hat, and then I took the margin of error and added it to p hat, and that was my answer.
Perfect. 3 6. All right. Good deal. Here is maybe prettier, with a little more detail, not necessarily. All right. There's also sometimes. Okay. So one quick comment. Is remember when you're finding these and you're evaluating that, start from the inside out. Right, so do 0.45 times 0.55 divided by 1898 first, then square root that. So raise it to the 1/2 power, or do that second square root, second answer thing, either way. And then last multiply it by 1.96. Right, so like I said, if I say inside out, you find this part first, then square root it. That's what we need. Whenever you're solving mathematical expressions, that's the way to do it. Okay. Now, very often, most of the time, we'll give you p hat. It's easy to identify because it's a percentage. 45%. That's pretty straightforward what p hat is, right? It's a percentage. Sometimes we won't give you p hat. We'll give it to you as x over n. How do you know I've given you an x and not a p hat? Because it won't have a percentage. So that's the clue. It's not a p hat p hat will either be a percentage, or I'll give it to you, or I give you x and you define p hat from x divided by n. So for example, if I say 3 out of 4 dentists recommend Crest, that means 3 divided by 4 dentists recommend Crest. Everybody understand where that comes from? Mm-hmm. How do I know it's not 3%? Because there isn't a percent symbol after it. It's just 3. So if there's no percent symbol, it's not a percent. If there is a percent symbol, then I'm giving you the percentage. If you need to find the percentage, this is how you find it. X divided by n. X being the smaller number, right? So it might be something like 13 out of 47 people ride the bus to work. So 13 divided by 47, that would be your p hat. And again, q hat is 1 minus p hat. All right, here's an example. How about Omar? Have you read it today?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Francois, read.
A random sample of 200 workers found that 128 drove to work alone. Find p hat and q hat, where p hat is the probability of workers who drove to work alone.
Perfect. So did I give you a percentage in there? Do you see a percentage? I'm not talking about the 95% confidence interval, because that's different. But like an actual percentage? No. So instead, what did I give you? 200 workers. That's my sample of. Sample of is your n. So that's my n. 200 is my n. 128 drove to work alone. Everybody find p hat. Bottom of the page, write down n equals, x equals, p hat equals, and q hat equals. So find those things, fill them in, find p hat, find q hat. 1 Q hat. And don't just write down what P hat is and Q hat is. How did you find it? Right? Yeah, you gotta show me that word. How did you find it? Kid? Yes, and give me that. Okay, so P hat 128 divided by 200.64. I like this better. I don't find Q hat this way. I find Q hat like this. 1 minus 0.64 equals 0.36. That's how I find my Q hat. I think it's easier. So that'd be my recommendation. You find P hat by x over n. Find Q hat by 1 minus P hat. All right, so here, wait, is that problem 2? Yep. So, does everyone see the 90% up here? I'm gonna look up. Does everyone see the 90%?
Yeah.
That says 90% confidence interval. That is not your P hat. It's 95% confidence interval. That's telling you what type of confidence interval to use. Good, so everybody find your P hat and Q hat right now and find your critical value right now. Find those 3 things. Make sure your masks are on correctly. Find P hat and Q hat. Find your critical value. Your n will always be the biggest number because your P hat can't be more than 100%. So your n will always be the larger number.
Make sure to take things for these ones? Okay, yeah, sorry. But other than that, what's it?
Not 90%. How many people said yes?
No, it's Oh, it is March.
Alright, so what's my P hat?
2.0?
Point.
Yeah, so P hat, I have 323 students who said yes. Out of how many? Out of 1404. So 323 divided by 1404, 0.230, which means that my Q hat is going to be 1 minus 0.230, 0.770. And then my critical value, look it up on the table, 1.645. Okay, sounds good. All right. Is everybody done already?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I'm just gonna go to move on. All right, so then my error is my critical value times the square root of 0.23 times 0.77 divided by, what's, 1404? Great, and you folks got what, Great. And then you're not done yet. Then you need to find your confidence interval. So it's going to be 0.230 minus 0.0185, comma 0.230 plus 0.0185, and you end up getting two what? 4.9. 4.9. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good deal. Now, if you did more decimal places here and did 0.018, does it go 84 something? Is that right?
Yeah.
484. Okay. So if you did more decimal places, then you might have ended up to a spot where you rounded slightly differently, and you might have been off, one there, which would be, you might have done 213 and 248 instead, which is also fine. All right. Also note that your homework may want you to use their table, and they may have two decimal places. Just as a heads up, folks. So homework alert. Right, so you bang your head against the wall. If they have a table, they may want you to use their table instead, which might only have two decimal places here. Good? Okay. All right. There's our confidence interval. Okay, so here's a quick discovery thought. Everyone take a few minutes. So say you have a confidence interval, and now you're trying to figure out what the point estimate and margin of error are. Just take a couple minutes, see if you figure it out on your own. So at home, pause this and try to figure that out on your own.